You're listening to the Morphology Podcast. Thanks for tuning in to the Morphology Podcast, aka Murph here to share interviews about biking experiences from cyclists who have pedaled to places all over. Each week we will get to know new people and explore new destinations to ride your bike. As you listen to these adventures, you may wonder, why haven't I done that yet? If you haven't yet, please subscribe to this podcast and give it a thumbs up if it's deserving. It helps me out a lot. Well, on the show today is Mandy Hansel, who recently completed the Lutzen 69er. The Lutzen 99er is an ultra-marathon mountain biking event in Lutzen, Minnesota. There are 4 distances, including the 99er, the 39er, the 69er, and of course the 99-mile option, catering to all riding levels and abilities. The course takes cyclists on snowmobile and ski trails, Forest Service roads, and a bit of pavement and single track. The event begins and ends at Lutzen Mountains. And before we jump into the interview, a quick shout out to Simmons Electric, our newest sponsor. Simmons Electric is a huge supporter of Iowa Bike Trails. Thanks, Mike, and everyone at Simmons Electric for supporting the podcast and for supporting bikes. Now here is Mandy to talk about the Lutzen 69er. Enjoy. All right, well, on the show today we have Mandy Hansel. How are you doing, Mandy?
I'm doing great.
Good. Well, I discovered Mandy. I think we are on a couple of Facebook groups together, and I feel like it was about biking, maybe gravel bike or fat biking. I can't recall. Do you recall?
I think it was women mountain bikers.
Okay.
Women who mountain bike maybe.
Yeah, so we're in this group together, which, obviously is just women sharing stories about different events. And Mandy shared that she completed, the event is called the Lutzen 99er, and you completed the Lutzen 69er. Is that correct?
That's right. And actually, when they say 69er, it's always a little bit off. So it actually ended up being 72 miles instead of 69 miles.
And that is such a mind mess when you're, okay, 69 miles, I'm done. And then I bet you, well, actually, spoiler alert, like some of your biggest elevation happened after you're exactly. At 69. So, but
Yep.
Anyway, I wanted to have you on to talk about the race that you did, because not only did you do 69 miles of epic terrain and crazy stuff, you decided to do it on a fat bike, which in itself is mind-blowing to me because, I have a fat bike and it's a completely different experience than when you're on a gravel bike or a mountain bike. So I'm really excited to have you tell your story.
Great. Yeah. Love the fat bike. So,
awesome.
Yeah.
And a second spoiler alert, not only did Mandy ride the Lutzen 69 on her fat bike, she was also the women's fat bike division winner. So congratulations on that.
Thank you so much.
Yeah. Okay, so before we get into Lutzen 69er, do you want to give us a highlight of maybe where you live, what you do, what cycling is like there?
Yeah, sure. So I live down in southeast Minnesota, in a little town near Winona, Minnesota. It's actually Goodview, Minnesota, which is right next to Winona. I am a corporate accounting controller at an electronics manufacturer, and married, and I have 4 kids and 2 grandkids. So I also on the side have my own nonprofit trail race company and called the Storm Trail Race Series, which we're having our next event coming up next Saturday.
Ah, and is that, do you do the local events?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. So we have, it's a series. So we have a couple that are just running, and then we also have one that is off-road duathlon, so mountain biking and running. So that one is in more in the early winter time.
Awesome. I recently did some traveling, and when you're traveling, I got into many podcasts that I normally don't listen to. And it seems like adventure racing in general is really getting to be a big deal because, you're not fighting traffic. You're not worried about getting, injured by a vehicle. So I feel like adventure racing is kind of on the horizon for something people want to do.
Yeah, I really prefer being off-road. I actually had an incident where I was training for a triathlon on the road and got hit by a truck.
Oh, geez.
So ever since then, I've kind of just tried to stick to the trails and
Mm-hmm.
off road.
Do you want to tell us a little bit about what cycling is like in your area?
So I live in what's called the driftless area. So
Mm.
we have, we're kind of in this river valley. So on both sides are big bluffs. And so if you want to ride a lot of the trails, you have to climb the big bluffs.
Mm.
So looking out my window right here is a big bluff right across the street. So we bike up on the top of the trail right across the street from us. So there's, a mile and a half climb up to the top of the bluffs, and then you get up to the bluffs, and it's just a beautiful view of the Mississippi River Valley.
Nice.
And you can see the other side where Wisconsin is, and it's just a beautiful place. And then we also have, down in the valley, then we have some flatter areas, but yeah, the bluffs are great and very challenging.
Mm-hmm. I guess, yeah, when you have no other option except to battle those bluffs, that, helps out with your fitness a lot too.
That's right, it does.
Well, then that gets me to our next topic, which is the Lutzen 69er. I know what the event is, but do you want to maybe start out by giving the listeners a taste of what Lutzen 99 is, and we'll go from there?
Sure. So it's actually held in Lutzen, Minnesota, which is up on the north shore of Lake Superior. So if you're familiar with maybe Duluth, it's up a little, about an hour and a half north of Duluth, right on Lake Superior. And so there are 4 different distances in the event. So there's a 25er, a 49er, 99er, and then of course the one that I did, which is a 69er.
Mm-hmm.
They have, just the regular just the regular mountain bike division. They have a single speed division, and they have the fat bike division. And so the last 3 years, well, last year was virtual, but last 3 years we've done it on the fat bikes, and then the 2 years before that I did it on the regular bike. So, there's about 1,500 people that participate.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so it's quite a big event, and since it was canceled last year, we actually still went up there, and we were actually signed up for the 99er last year on fat bikes, and so we attempted to go up and ride the 99 course, but after 13 hours, we'd made it 82 miles and decided to call it a day. So we decided this year we would stick with the 69er just because we didn't. You have to be really moving on a fat bike to be able to finish in the time cutoff that they have. So we wanted to be able to enjoy ourselves out on the trail, so we stuck with the 69er.
Mm-hmm. And I've done, plenty of events that are called races, but I am not, trying to make it to the podium or do anything crazy. So I treat those as rides. But is this considered a race or a ride?
It is considered a race,
Okay.
yeah. And there are some that are very, very intense, and they even had their bikes sitting at the start line, before the race even started to hold their places.
Oh, geez.
But no, I'm of the packer kind of. We ride really for the sociability of the fat bike and everything. So we just ride to have fun and just to finish to cross the finish line.
Oh yeah, that's totally my style as well.
Yeah. And so when I found out that I was the winner of the women's fat bike division, I was on my way home already, because we did a very quick trip up there. It was a 4.5, 5-hour drive up. We did the race and then drove back home again. So I didn't find out that I had won until we were on our way home. And so we didn't stick around for the awards. And I was kind of disappointed that I would have been able to stand on the podium, but, which is a rarity for me.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, you mentioned when you were testing out the 99er, you were on the route for more than 13 hours. But how about the 69er?
So this one took us just a little bit over 9 hours.
Oh,
So I think
wow.
my finish was 9 hours, 18 minutes or something like that. And I let my husband go, at the end is pretty technical, lots of inclines and hills to climb. So I let him go first. So he finished in, 9 hours and 4 minutes or something like
Mm-hmm.
that up ahead of me. But yeah, it's a little over 9 hours. So it,
Mm-hmm.
it was a lot of fun.
Yeah. And you mentioned, people either do it on mountain bikes or single speeds or fat bikes. So I'm envisioning the terrain to be a little bit of everything, but do you want to kind of give the listeners an idea? You've kind of alluded to a few hints on what the terrain's like, but maybe give us a little bit more.
Yeah, so you actually start in the town of Lutzen. It's well, I shouldn't say that. It's like a little ski resort outside the town of Lutzen.
Mm.
And so you actually start with this very amazing downhill. It's probably a mile and a half of downhill. And so regular road, but it's this year they put in. We had to all stay in place. We couldn't pass anybody on the way down the hill
Mm.
because they've had a lot of problems with people kind of getting out of control and crashing on that very first
Oh, so it
descent.
must be steep.
Yes,
Mm-hmm.
yes, it is. Yeah. So you do that, and then you actually ride Highway 61 for a little while. And then you ascend. Oh boy, that one's got to be about a 3 mile on the road ascend up to the top of the bluffs up
Mm.
there. And then of course then we turn and it's gravel. So there was a lot of gravel roads. And then from the gravel roads, you turn into more of like a forestry roads and things like that. Um, Lots of trails and very rocky, very, very
Mm.
rocky. So there were sections where I mean I had to hold on with all my might just to hold on to the to the bike so I didn't get thrown off. It was just so rocky. It was pretty dry, so we didn't have much mud except there's one area where there is a beaver dam,
Mm.
and the beaver dam broke, and so the course was actually all covered in water. So we actually had to walk our bikes through that. I mean, it looked like a little pond basically. So
Mm.
that was interesting, but yeah, and some grassy trails and things like that. So all sorts of different. And then also, of course, at the end, you get into near the Superior Hiking Trail. So you get some of that exposure to that. And then you come into the single track that is at the ski resort. And so that's a little challenge for me. It was very technical.
Mm-hmm. I have spent plenty of miles walking my bike over the technical stuff just because it's such it just sucks all the energy out of my mind when you have to look at all the obstacles while you're on your bike. Sometimes it's just easier to walk it.
Right. Yeah. And I struggled this time a lot with, just being kind of tired. Like I said, we left home, at 8 o'clock at night and got up north at 2 in the morning,
Oh,
slept in the
wow.
car for like 3 hours. And so, I stopped a few times just to kind of regroup, and just get my head back in the game and everything. I mean, you can't let up on this
Mm.
course because if
Mm-hmm.
you do, you're going to end up down on the ground.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well, you told us that you were on a fat bike, but do you want to tell us a little bit about your bike choice and why?
Yeah, so I have a Trek Farley 5, and
Ooh,
I'll tell you,
nice.
yeah, I'm not like a super technical bike knowledgeable person. So if my bike breaks, I take it to the shop. So
Right.
um, I don't really know much about them. So I've had it now for about 3 years. I just really love it. We have a group of people that bike a lot together. We all have fat bikes, and we ride the trails and go to wineries and breweries and things like that. And but I just really like the the social aspect of riding
Mm-hmm.
fat bike rather than just a regular mountain bike. So.
Mm-hmm. And do you, I'm in Iowa, so I spend most of my winter on my fat bike. And even when it's, fairly deep snow, you can let air out of the tires and it's still nice and bouncy and you can keep moving. So I'm assuming you also bike in the wintertime?
Oh yeah, we ride
Yeah.
we ride year round. So we have some fatter tires that we put on for winter riding, and then the
Hmm.
skinny, if you can call them skinnier tires for the summer riding. But yeah, and then in the winter we actually usually put the spikes,
Oh, sure.
on the tires, and so we can ride more on icy stuff. But
Hmm.
yeah, we learned about air pressure a couple years ago, and it's a game changer,
I
really. Is
agree.
if you get down to this low psi, and then you can just kind of float across the top of
Y-
the snow and not sink into it. So
Yeah.
it's so much fun. We really enjoy the winter riding too, and we've done some winter ultra races on our fat bikes, so that's a lot of fun too. Up at St. Croix State Park, we've done
Hmm.
those.
Hmm.
Yeah.
And then when you're in this event, the Lutzen 69er, do you add any sort of like suspension seat post or suspension on your handlebars, or do you just go as you normally are on your fat bike?
Yeah, we just go as we normally are.
Nice.
We put a couple bags just to carry, supplies and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
Last year when we did it virtually, we actually hid water out on the course so we could, because there was no aid stations last year, so it was kind of a self-supported type thing, and we had a lot of food and a lot of
Mm-hmm.
water with us last year, but lightened up a little bit this year. But yeah, I mean, I have like a dropper post that I use
Mm-hmm.
sometimes, but that's about it. Otherwise, it's pretty much just the standard bike.
Well, I have visions of my own experience. I did San Juan Mountain bike ride last year, and that was through the mountains of Colorado.
Oh,
And
wow.
it was similar to what you just described, where you had, service roads, you had gravel, you had dirt, we had plenty of rocks, and getting over that sketchy terrain. You have to, for me, a matter of trusting your bike because it's going to do what it needs to do. But oh gosh, so I want to know, kind of your thoughts on getting through that sketchy, trail maneuvers and getting your bike to do what you wanted it to do.
Yeah, so I tell myself that same exact thing over and over during those sketchy parts is I have to trust the bike.
Yes.
The bike is supposed to be on that terrain, and the bike is supposed to carry me over that terrain, and I have to trust my bike and that it's going to do what I need it to do. So
Mm-hmm.
I mean, really all I can do is hold on
Right.
and steer it where it needs to go, and hopefully it'll hold on to me through those
Yeah.
sketchy parts. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. Well, how about specifically talking about the Lutzen 69er? Any like favorite moments that you want to share with us? A quick interruption to give a shout out to Primal Wear. Cycling is their passion and apparel is their craft. So if you're in the market for a new jersey, bibs, mask, or any cycling apparel, go to primalwear.com and use code PRIMALMURPH to get 20% off your purchase. Yes, 20% off. Now back to the show.
um that, like I talked about that first downhill, I just really love that
Mm-hmm.
downhill. The sound of 1,500 bikes
Oh,
coming down
yeah.
that hill together, that
Yeah.
humming sound, and of course then you get the burning smell of the burning rubber
Breaks.
of
Oh,
brakes. Yeah. So, that's probably my favorite part. And of course, it's all downhill. So, I mean, who doesn't love a good downhill,
right.
where you don't have to do much? But, the aid stations are really, really a lot of fun at this race. So there's lots of volunteers, even with the kind of a little bit restricted COVID stuff this year.
Mm-hmm.
They're awesome. So you pull in, they're ready to give you whatever you need, and it's fun. There's one unofficial aid station out there who, always has the beer and the
Mm.
and the fireball, shots and
Yep.
things like that. So those are always fun.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. What was the weather like? Like, was it really warm?
Oh boy, it was perfect this year.
Oh,
It
good.
was pretty much overcast the whole day,
Mm.
and like upper 60s, lower 70s. So I mean, it was amazing.
Mm.
So yeah, we got really lucky this year.
Yeah, sounds like it.
Yeah.
Anything beat you up? Whether, we've talked about terrain a couple times now, but anything that you're like, oh man, I've got to work through that next time.
Well, I did have the one mishap on the
I think it's
on the
probably
little.
the one that I read about.
Yeah, so as you come into the ski resort kind of area, you come off the Superior hiking trail and you cross a bridge and then basically go up this like 70-degree ramp up to the single track.
Mm.
And I have attempted that so many times, and I just really wanted to not walk up it this time. And so I gave it all I had, and that was not enough. And
Mm.
so I basically tipped off the ramp to the left-hand side. Luckily, they had put bales, hay bales next to the ramp, so I fell into that. But so I was clipped in, and so my bike kind of flipped over and basically landed on top of my face.
Oh no.
Yeah, so I'm still recovering with the bruises on my legs. I lost some skin on that ramp. I left a little present for it, and it was lucky I had some sunglasses on because I mean the handlebar hit right in my eye, so I
Mm.
ended up with a black eye as well. So I was a little banged up and pretty shaken too, so it was, to have that happen, and then I had to get back on the bike and do probably the hardest section of the course for me was that single track. And so that was pretty tough to put myself back together
Sure.
and get back on that bike and finish that race off. And
And had you already sent your husband ahead at that point, or was he with you?
yes. Nope. He
Oh,
he right before we come off the hiking trail across the bridge, I said, I'll see you at the end.
yeah.
So no, I was all alone when that all happened, and yeah. So luckily nobody saw me, but
Oh.
I don't know. Maybe it's not lucky nobody saw me. I mean, nobody could have done anything anyway. So yeah, it was. So then I, got back up and finished it off because I wasn't going to let that stopped me that
Yeah.
close to the end. I mean, I was literally like a mile and a half to 2 miles away from the end.
Oh man. And you have to go back and do it again and not fall just so that you can,
Absolutely.
talk yourself into it and be like, "See? I knew I could do it."
That's right. Yes, very much. So I just got to get more power as I get up there, I guess.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, so I started in the a couple years in the small shorter distances like the 49 range, and then the last 3 years, well, this year and the year before that, we did the 69er, and then of course virtually we attempted the 99er.
Mhm.
So yes,
Mhm.
so I've been doing it for about 5 years now. Yeah.
So I would consider that, you definitely have some experience under your belt, but any like pro tips that you would give somebody who's maybe going to do it for the first time, whether it be, like stop at the secret stop to do fireball or,
Yeah.
eat something special or any tips?
Um, well, I would say make sure you bring a lot of bug spray. So
Oh,
there are these nasty black flies that love to attack you the whole day. And so I don't know how many times I was at an aid station and people came in, do you have any bug spray? I need
oh,
bug
wow.
spray. So that was very important. They like to fly around your head, and of course, then you're trying to swat them away, and that just doesn't work either, especially on the really rocky parts. It
Right.
kind of seems to be when they come out the most. So, and then also we bought these water bottles that are awesome. So they actually have like a little cover that covers the actual part where you drink out of,
Mm,
because it's super dusty up there, and so you get dust everywhere. And so it's nice to have these caps so that the dust doesn't get into where you're actually drinking from. So you
mm.
just pop the little the top off, and then you can drink from an actual like non-dirt
Sure.
um, water bottle. So that would be another thing that I would say would be a good
Awesome.
thing to bring.
Awesome.
And
Um,
of course, stop at the Fireball aid
yeah.
station. Yes.
Around here, there's especially on fat bike races, there's always a guy in the middle of the woods, and I'm assuming it's the same setup as what you're referring to, and he'll have like pounds and pounds of bacon along
Oh,
with fireball shots. So people are always like, "Yes, I can't wait to stop there."
yes, yeah. Bacon is always good on the bike too.
Well, congratulations for actually, completing it and having a first place finish and being on a fat bike. Do you think you'll do it again?
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. We may we may drop down to like the 49er. I think the fun of the party afterwards, with all
Mm-hmm.
the music and the food and the beer, we kind of miss out on that just because it takes us so long to finish compared to everybody else. So we're
Mm-hmm.
thinking about maybe just dropping down to the 49 so we can enjoy that little after party a little bit more next
Oh,
year.
sure. I understand that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, if people want to know more about it, the website's pretty simple. It's Lutzen, the number 99, and then ER. So Lutzen99er.com. And I'll put that in the show notes so that people can look it up. And then once you get to Lutzen 99er, then you can see all the different route choices that you've mentioned. So, well, what advice would you give someone considering doing like a cycling adventure like we've talked about today? A quick interruption to tell you this week's podcast is sponsored by Lizard Lips Lip Balm. These great lip balms contain natural ingredients, come in a variety of flavors, and you can choose certified organic or balms with sun protection. Check it out at lizardlips.net. Now back to the show.
I would say the biggest thing is just time on your bike. I mean, that was when you're on your bike for 9+ hours,
Mm,
that can be a little rough on your body. So
hmm.
especially my rear end doesn't really like
Yeah.
being on the saddle that long. So that for me is how I really just prepare, is just getting time on the bike. And it's not necessarily always, hill climbing or anything. Sometimes it's just a flat road, but just, for a couple of hours. And so just to get your butt ready for 9+ hours on it. So
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
yeah.
that's amazing advice because even if you are preparing for something big and you maybe don't get the right training as far as how fast you are, but time in the saddle it could be a game changer if you don't do it.
Right, yeah, and it forces your muscles, your neck, your back, and things like that to
Yeah,
really get prepared as well. Because, the back of my neck is always one that doesn't really like to sit there for 9 hours. So
9 hours, right.
yeah,
Right.
so yep.
Well, how about any adventures on the horizon for you?
So we have our own race. So Storm the Farm is next Saturday, so we're excited about that. And then my husband and I are doing a relay. The Gear West is having a triathlon up in the city, so we're gonna go do that.
Mm.
And the weekend after that, I'll be up in Bayfield doing the Point to La Point swim, which is this year it's a 5K swim in Lake Superior.
Oh,
So that's,
wow.
yeah.
Lake Superior, I mean, that's, almost a version of an ocean, and it's not a warm body of water, is it?
No, it is very cold. So yes, I will be wearing full wetsuit, double swim cap, swim socks. If I could have like mittens on my hands, I probably would, but
Oh my gosh. Well, before we go, do you want to plug anything that, is meaningful to you?
yeah, so it's called the Storm Trail Race Series,
Mm-hmm.
and our website is www.thestormtrs.org. And so we hold our events to raise money for youth mental health.
Oh,
So
okay.
we have different organizations around town, and each one of our events raises money for that particular organization. And so this time is the Hiawatha Valley Mental Health Center, which I'm also just happen to be on the board of directors of.
Mm-hmm.
So we have five different distances this year. We have a 5K, 10K, 16K, 23K, and for the ultra runners, we have the 43K, so they can get
Wow.
just 27 miles on the trails and call themselves an ultra runner.
Wow.
And one thing that we really are proud of is that we don't have any cutoffs for our events.
Hmm.
So we try to be very inclusive with all abilities, all skill levels, and experience levels. So just so everybody can get out on the trails and just enjoy being out there, not having to worry about getting cut off at an aid station or
Mm-hmm.
whatnot. So no cutoffs at any of our events. So we're pretty proud of that. So
Nice. And you said the stormtrs.org, right?
Correct. Yep.
Awesome. Well, Mandy, thank you so much for coming on, and congrats again on your win at the Lutzen 69er for the Fat Bike Division.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, and best of luck on your event coming up this weekend.
Great. Thank you so much.
Well, listeners, that's it for this week. Thanks, Mandy, for coming on to talk about your adventure doing the Lutzen 69er. I think I need to put that event on my bucket list. Email me at murphologypodcast@gmail.com if you have the topic or the name of a cyclist you find interesting. You can support my podcast at patreon.com/murphology. And I want to give Jacqueline a shout out for becoming the newest Patreon. Thanks, Jacqueline, for your support. Visit my Instagram page for daily entertainment and check out my website for all kinds of bicycle stuff. I will leave you with this quote from the Unwritten Book of Murphology, and this quote comes from Nelson Mandela. It always seems impossible until it's done. Think about it.